Just talking musicals with you.
Hello, my name is Lesley Knight and welcome to Just Talking Musicals. Like many of you out there, I've loved musicals all my life and have fond childhood memories of dancing around the sitting room at home with my mum's apron on my head, pretending to be Maria from The Sound of Music. I know. Anyway, I've always been fascinated about where all the lovely old shows actually came from. From Showboat to West Side Story, through to the music of George Gershwin, Cole Porter and Irving Berlin. I just wanted to know how it all came about. So, Just Talking Musicals is going to take a look at the stories behind the landmark shows and unearth some of the fascinating tales that lurk behind all those wonderful vocal scores. But don't worry, we won't just be dusting off stories from the old shows. Together with my brilliant producer, Katie Ridout. Hello. We're also going to meet up and talk with an exciting array of actors, singers, choreographers and musicians, and talk to them about what it's really like to be a working professional in the theatre today. And try to discover while we're at it, just how you go about getting there. When I was studying at college, I found a fascinating book when I was moseying about in Chimes bookshop in Marylebone High Street in London one day. The book was called Song by Song, and it was written by Ned Sherrin and Carol Brahms. Each chapter looked at the career path of 14 well-known Broadway lyricists, starting with the likes of Irving Berlin and Lawrence Hart, and ending with Sheldon Harnick and Stephen Sondheim. It's a wonderful book because it talks about the lives of these well-known writers and describes how they actually got started. And it set off another question in me. But where on earth did the musical as we know and love it today actually come from? When we think of Broadway today, it's easy to picture the bright lights and myriad of theatres radiating out from either side of Times Square. The mention of its very name instantly brings the word theatre and the Great White Way to mind. But did you know Broadway itself runs some 30 miles from top to bottom and holds the distinction of being the oldest main thoroughfare in New York, dating back to the early days of New Amsterdam? Broadway, Brood of Egg, get it? So, Broadway's place at the heart of New York makes it unique just as its theatre district is in the world. Theatrical entertainments were being performed in New York well before the American Revolution, the most notable being Murray and Keene's Theatre on Nassau Street. And rather notably, it turns out, Walter Murray and Thomas Keene chose to end their first year of business in 1750 with The Beggar's Opera, a popular ballad opera all the way from London, written by John Gay, and it has long held the distinction of being one of the earliest influences on what was to become the great Broadway musical. So, New York was a bustling hub of entertainment from as early as the mid-18th century, alive with musical and theatrical influences from all over the world. And there were two streets in particular where entertainment came to centre its attention from around the 1800s. First off, there was the Bowery, just a few blocks south of Union Square, home to noisy, robust bars filled with a variety of rather interesting clientele, set alongside popular entertainments offering burlesque, vaudeville and minstrel shows. Popular music of the day was pounded out on a piano, and young, hopeful buskers like a teenaged Irving Berlin would quite literally barge in and start singing for their supper. And leading off from the north side of Union Square was Broadway, with its playhouses and theatres offering an enticing array of plays, melodramas and operettas. Union Square was quite literally the centre of theatrical action in the late 1800s, with Tony Pastor's famous music hall opening on the East 14th Street in 1881. It offered entertainment for all the family, a cut above the rowdy excesses of the Bowery. And it was on Union Square where canny music publishers first decided to open their offices, right at the heart of the action, never too far away for a mosey down along the Bowery to catch the latest tune on the streets, nor to take a rather more elegant stroll in the other direction, up along Broadway, and hear the very latest melody being championed by one of its rising stars. And then, in 1895, one of New York's most enterprising and theatrical entrepreneurs noticed a busy intersection and transfer point for streetcar passengers further up Broadway. It was miles away from any competition up on Longacre Square. This particular entrepreneur's name was Oscar Hammerstein, a German migrant who had run away from home at the tender age of 16. With nothing more than a steely determination to succeed, and the proceeds from the sale of his treasured violin in his pocket. By 1895, Oscar Hammerstein I had become a well-known theatre owner and producer, and with a reputation for being fearless in the face of opposition, and with an eye for a good opportunity, he set about sinking all his money into the entire block front on the east side of Broadway, between 44th and 45th Street, and proceeded to build the prestigious Olympia Theatre. The Olympia was huge, with 3 auditoriums presenting comic opera, burlesque and vaudeville. It had a seating capacity of 6,000, an oriental cafe, a promenade, bowling, billiards and a roof garden. The opening night was reported to be a mob scene, and with entry priced at 50 cents a ticket, the theatres were filled to capacity every single night for a whole year. And then in 1904, Longacre Square itself was renamed Times Square, when the prestigious New York Times newspaper offices took up residence in their state-of-the-art skyscraper building, which sat right on top of the entrance to the new subway. And it prompted the newspaper's headline, "Times Square is the name of city's new centre." Before long, the music publishers in Union Square migrated north as well, and settled for a pitch on West 28th Street, just between 5th Avenue and Broadway, where it earned itself the jaunty title Tin Pan Alley. With music being played, sung and composed morning, noon and night in the small studios of the publishers' offices, the resultant din coming from the open windows high up above the street must have left passers-by in no doubt as to why this nickname had come about. Tin Pan Alley was open to anyone who could play a good tune, write it down or listen to that new tune and take it off to the local bars in the Bowery and literally plug it to the punters in the hope that they would go out and buy the music. To do this work was an opportunity for many young people searching for employment to earn a regular wage and keep their heads above water. Young men such as Jerome Kern, George M. Cohen, the Gershwin brothers, and even the erstwhile singing waiter, Irving Berlin. They were all drawn to the publishers of Tin Pan Alley. It nurtured great talent, and for many it provided the vital stepping stone to a career on Broadway. Since the turn of the century, many of the old buildings around Broadway and Times Square had become foundation stones for huge display signs, advertising popular drinks, cigarettes and even underwear. By night, these huge bright white lights filled the area with a false daylight, bringing a new kind of glamour to the district, earning it the title, the Great White Way. As the 1920s got underway, Broadway's theatres were thriving and numbered close to 80 in total, as this decade wholeheartedly got into its stride. This was the Roaring Twenties, and Broadway was fast becoming one of the most influential theatre districts in the world. In our next episode, we're going to be looking at how one play's disastrous out-of-town tryout led to one of the most famous musicals of all time being written. Thank you for joining us today. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter for more tasty morsels of Broadway history. And press the subscribe button to bag the best front row seats for each new episode. But most of all, thank you so much for tuning in today, and see you here soon for another instalment of Just Talking Musicals.
Just talking musicals, musicals with you.
Press the subscribe button so that you get to hear it. Press the subscribe button, hell's bells. And most of all, press the subscribe button for